Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to say a few words. So I have slides. I hope you'll see them on the screens there. Should I?
Okay.
Okay.
Should work.
So I say a few words about a very simple issue, which is how and why the sharing economy helps take down traditional industries. So I'll begin by just presenting my book, but just to remind you with around which argument I came into those discussions, those conversations about what is the digital economy and how it helps change the whole economy. So 2 years ago, with Henri Verdier, a good friend of mine who's in charge of the French government's open data effort at the moment, we wrote a book called The Age of the Multitude, with a very simple goal, which was to explain to the French elite what the digital economy is about and why it is important for us as a nation, the French nation. And since we wanted to make it simple, we had to find a thesis, a central argument that we had to put forward to explain in one short sentence what the digital economy is about. And we chose to stress the fact that the digital economy is about empowering the multitude, which means all of us, all individuals who are now more educated than ever, more equipped with powerful equipments, powerful devices, and more connected than ever. And when we're billions using the same online applications in a coordinated way, we're exerting a power that is far more superior to that power of organizations, whether big corporations or governments. And so this is really the key to understanding the digital economy it is that digital technology empowers people to become more powerful than governments and than big corporations. And you can't dig into the issue if you don't get that point before. So there's one main business asset in this economy, which is to forge an alliance with the multitude, with the individuals, and to have the corporations working alongside the individuals to disrupt the entire markets and to create whole new industries. Behind this idea was, we didn't invent the idea, obviously. A lot of people, a lot of authors, of entrepreneurs, of publishers had worked out around this issue, and each of them has put forward its own term to describe this new reality. So I have here a list of all the terms that have been used for decades, for some of them, to describe what it is about, how come that corporations work with individuals to create value. And you have several generations. You have the older generation is about scholars working on management or business and stressing the importance, the role of the customer in innovation. Then you have a massive impression made by Wikipedia and this mass collaboration that erupted from nothing to create the biggest encyclopedia in the world. And it inspired terms like crowdsourcing or user-generated content. And finally, in the middle of the last decade, Tim O'Reilly forged the term Web 2.0 to offer a synthesis of all this. And following Web 2.0 and all the discussions around Web 2.0, a lot of people have forged new terms like Wikinomics, the sharing economy, obviously distributed capitalism, and Henri and I did this with The Age of the Multitude. But the problem is, you can understand, looking at those terms, is that there are several terms in competition and not one that you can put forward to explain to the ministers and to the president and to the CEOs of the big corporation. This is what it is about. You simply have to understand that. They can't understand all those terms competing with each other. You have to forge one, and so far, no one has succeeded in this. So what's behind is, why is it important to forge an alliance with the multitude? It's because, as Babak Nevi, one of the founders of AngelList and of Venture Hacks, has stressed in a very important blog post called The Entrepreneurial Age, it is that we're entering a new economy. We've gone through another revolution, and we've entered what he called the entrepreneurial age, where, as you can read, the winners are those with the ability to serve a customer at the highest level of quality and scale simultaneously. Okay. Before that, you could have bad quality at scale, like some companies did, because they had erected barriers to entries for competitors. Or before that, you could have quality, but at a small scale, like craftsmen serving a very little niche, but you couldn't have both quality and scale at the same time. And what's completely new with corporations forging their alliance with the multitude is that suddenly some of them manage to reach those two goals simultaneously, having high quality and scale. And the sharing economy obviously can help with that for two reasons. Because the sharing economy ensures quality, and for that, I think everyone here knows this major work on the sharing economy that was written actually 15 years ago, the Clue Train Manifesto. And in this work, the four authors stressed that when corporations can't join conversations and appear sincere and authentic, you have to be a person to enter a conversation and to inspire the impression that the conversation is actually happening, and behind it are sincere ideas and feelings exchanged between people. And so you can see as authenticity and sincerity are a major piece of the quality of a product, that the sharing economy with a lot of people offering what they have and offering it without thinking about making money and being a capitalist and growing an empire, well, that authenticity contributes to improving the quality of the product. But you also have, thanks to the sharing economy, large scale, because it's simply the multitude. You have millions of people, or dozens of millions of people, or even hundreds of millions of people ready to offer on the marketplace their bedroom, their car, their whatever they had, and that they can share with other in a trusted relationship. So the sharing economy basically helps with driving the entrepreneurial economy by providing to entrepreneurs both quality and scale. And so another step of my presentation is to evoke an emerging trend in Silicon Valley venture capital conversation, which is the conversation around full-stack startups. I don't know how many of you have read those blog posts about full-stack startups. Did anyone read it? No. Well, it was all triggered by a blog post by Chris Dixon, who's a partner at Andreessen Horowitz, the major VC fund in California. So here is Mark Andreessen, you know him, and he's a big backer of the idea of full-stack startups. So it comes from the term full-stack developer. You know that a full-stack developer is a developer that can develop both back-end code and front-end code. So it can go all the way from the back-end to the front-end. It can do basically everything. A full-stack startup is a company that from the beginning on, from its creation on, can enter the whole value chain from the front end, where you're in contact with the customers, up to the back end, where you have to control major assets like infrastructure or sales force at a national level or at a global level. And what the full stack startups conversation signals is two things. The first thing is maturity. The venture capital economy in the Silicon Valley has reached a high level of maturity, which enables big VC firms like Andreessen Horowitz to announce publicly that now they're ready to finance full-stack startups, meaning companies that will disrupt entire value chain from the end from the top to the bottom, without first entering one level of this chain, usually in direct contact with the customers. No, it's not intermediaries anymore, intermediaries between an existing offer and an existing demand. It's a company that takes the whole market from the beginning on and evicts all the incumbents out of the market and basically make them go bankrupt. So the first it signals first maturity of the VC system. The second thing that it signals is basically impatience, because it's as simple as that. Innovators in the Valley have had the patience to disrupt an industry company by company, level of the value chain after one level after another, etc. And they had the patience to work for many years in some industry with the incumbent, with the existing players. But now they're kind of fed up. They think that the incumbents have not changed fast enough, and that if you have the entrepreneurial maturity, if you have the capital to back it, then you can enter the markets and disrupt them from the top to the bottom without working for 1 minute with the incumbents. So you can make them go bankrupt in 1 second and take the whole market. That's just what Tesla is doing. Tesla didn't ask the permission to automotive company. They didn't want to collaborate at all. They just hired the best engineers in this industry and learned to build the cars by itself, by themselves, without having to work with the incumbents that would have slowed down their effort in disrupting the car industry. So Elon Musk is basically the example of a first full-stack startups. Tesla is a full-stack startups because it tries to work absolutely without the incumbent and align with its customers, obviously. And so it's really full-stack startups, and the theory behind it is really impatience meets capital. And a last example of that is Netflix producing its own series now, because they were kind of fed up to negotiate the rights on the existing series produced by the old professionals of the entertainment industry, and they didn't want to negotiate anymore. They said, if we have the direct contact, if we have the alliance with the customers, with the viewers, we know what they want, we know what series we have to produce, and that's House of Cards. And we have not the patience to negotiate the rights anymore. We'll produce our own series. We're slowly becoming a full-stack company like Tesla is becoming in the car industry. So you have a lot of cases illustrating how the multitude, the people, help entrepreneurs create full stack progressively, allow with the entrepreneurs to disrupt industries. You have Napster. Napster was, okay, we're entrepreneurs, we're accountable to our shareholders, to the system, so we cannot break the law up front. But our members can do it and take the risk, because the music industry can crush a new company like Napster, but it won't crush its own customers, the people who are sharing their files through Napster. So Napster forged an alliance with the users, and even though Napster had to close shop, they triggered something that basically disrupted the whole music industry in the end. Another case is YouTube. YouTube was mocked when it was launched because the professionals in the broadcasting industry saw the videos that were shared on YouTube, and so what interest is there in bad quality videos of cats? I don't see the point, and I'm staying with what I have, which is traditional broadcasting with a lot of know-how and a lot of skills, etc., etc. And finally, 10 years later, after the launch of YouTube, the professionals are forced to consider that the audience has moved from them to YouTube, and that if they want to reach the audience, it's on YouTube that they can find it. And so YouTube has become a tool for professionals to make contact with the audience, and YouTube was launched as a sharing product, and now it's inevitable for traditional players to go through YouTube. So YouTube helped disrupt the broadcasting industry. And the final case is Airbnb, and I only have 30 seconds, I'm sorry. But Airbnb, you have to browse this online to Google this. It's an exchange of emails between venture capitalists. Paul Graham, the CEO of Y Combinator, wrote emails at the time to Fred Wilson, a famous New York City venture capitalist, to to try to convince him to invest in Airbnb. And he explained, it was in 2009, 5 years ago, that Airbnb will ultimately become the marketplace for booking hotel rooms. And Fred Wilson was skeptic, and he didn't invest, and now he deeply regrets it because Airbnb has become this huge phenomenon. And Paul Graham published the emails with the authorization of all the people involved to explain how VCs can make bad choices, and how he predicted that Airbnb will go all the way from people sharing bedrooms to becoming the marketplace, threatening the entire hotel industry. So finally, and that's my conclusion, and I have to make it shorter, but some of you may remember this book written in the 80s, Barbarians at the Gate, and it was a book to denounce the private equity industry and its bad practices and how it hurts companies by buying them out with the leveraged debt and forcing people out of the company and cutting costs, etc., etc. Now the sharing economy is basically doing that. It's helping traditional companies change when, in fact, they cannot change because their managers don't want to move on and their clients are too conservative and their shareholders want their dividends. Well, if they can't change because they're trapped in this system with bad managers, bad shareholders, and sometimes bad customers, then the sharing economy can help change all that and create another stream of business besides the traditional industry that ultimately will take control of the market and integrate all along the value chain, just as a full-stack startup can do. So it only began a few years ago with YouTube and with Napster, but now there's fire everywhere, and that's the reason why you can see all those lobbying battles between innovators and incumbents, and all lobbying the government to obtain something that could either protect the incumbents or help the innovators disrupt traditional industries. And so I think it's time for a coordinated and supportive response. You cannot answer differently when asked by the hotel industry or asked by the taxi industry, or more and more the sharing economy is used as a leverage to help innovators disrupt traditional industries. And there's a need for a common frame, or to help innovators make way, if only because it really creates value for the whole economy by implementing creative distractions, just like private equity did in the 80s. Maybe disruption now is the way to implement creative destruction and to force the bad managers and the bad shareholders out of the existing companies to make way for new entrepreneurs willing to forge an alliance with the customers. It helps, obviously, to diversify the income of all the people sharing in exchange for money. What it helps make ends meet. Then it helps trust and identity. It's kind of funny to see how an economy rooted in scarcity, it's because people need the money that they're willing to share what they have. But instead of creating hatred and mistrust between people, the scarcity turns into trust, because through the sharing economy, people connect, exchange things, and learn to trust each other even though they don't know each other. And finally, it empowers people, and I think that's because I'm optimistic. It will help ultimately people reconcile what they see of an industry as people working in this industry, so fearing for their jobs, negotiating their salaries, etc., and people sharing in this industry as free agents allied with the big corporations of the sharing industry. And ultimately, they can reconcile the two visions. I'm both a worker and a customer, and maybe that will help change how capitalism works and how capitalism creates value for the whole society. So thank you very much. I'm sorry.